some people think that we are undermining the nation where we come from. Zimbabwe is a highly toxic country, full of, in fact, it is led by a mafia, gangsters. These are people who can actually kill even their own in a broad daylight street. They don't follow rules. If you look at the reasons that is pushing ZANU PF to actually arrest Blessed Mhlanga, who works for HSTV, you will actually be amazed. The reason is a speech that he issued chronicling his experiences under ZANU PF regime. This is the reason why even the Minister of Information and Publicity has gone to an extent of issuing a statement against Blessed Mhlanga because of expressing, of sharing his story with the members of the international community. Let's hear what he shared.
Writing on protocol that has already been observed. I'm a journalist. I don't understand protocol that much. Today I appear before you wearing clothes that I've worn for 73 days in pre-trial detention. This, ladies and gentlemen, was my uniform as I suffered crimes of journalism. That was my prison number in D class section, which is kept the most dangerous criminals. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what repression looks like in Zimbabwe today. In the past, it was violence on the streets, abductions, and forced disappearances. Now, it's violence committed using the legal system. I call it lawfare. As journalist of 25 years, I've reported on Zimbabwe's democratic regression into a sophisticated authoritarian state. It was never always like this. Growing up, I idolized the president, the late Robert Gabriel Mugabe. My dad was a military veteran. He had fought in the War of Liberation to liberate our country from white colonial rule and was a proud member of the ruling ZANU PF party. So are some of his brothers today, who were also part of the war. We lived comfortably, as he was a soldier at that time. But then, when I was in high school, he got sick. He needed medication. But our government hospitals were dry. There was no medication. For 6 months, I watched him deteriorate. And when he died, I started asking questions. Like, why was our life such a mess? Yet and my father fought for our country. And did we not have enough mineral resources and taxes to provide for the sick? Especially when government top officials drive top-of-the-range vehicles, drink expensive whiskey, and dine in top hotels at our expenses and on our taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, once you start asking those questions, you cannot unask them. And I could not unsee the corruption of a government that treats public interest journalism as a security threat. So I became a journalist, reporting on stories others dared not to touch. I became the face of unmolested truth and journalism, the face of Heart and Soul TV and broadcasting, where I host a show called Free Talk. We give dissenting voices a platform, tackle corruption, and we actually ultimately broke the government's monopoly in broadcast television using multimedia means. So perhaps it came as no surprise to me why I was deemed a political threat and eventually arrested. In February 25, police came to my office with guns to arrest me, a mere man of pen, paper, and words. Fortunately for me, unfortunately for them, I was in Zambia working on a documentary. So when they could not arrest me, they posted a statement on Elon Musk's X asking the public to help in my arrest. I read this post, voluntarily flew back home, handed myself to the police voluntarily, but dear friends, they still arrested me. This was against advice from my friends, my family, my colleagues, and especially my daughter, Lorraine Ruby Mhlanga, who advised me not to return to Zimbabwe, but instead to lie low in South Africa until the situation cooled down. Like them, I knew what would happen. The state has been very consistent on how it plays its hand. They arrest opponents, punish them through pre-trial detention, and release them months later. You might be acquitted, but you would have been punished. That's what they did to opposition leader Job Scala and journalist Hopo Chingono, who spent 2 years and 80 days in prison respectively. They were eventually acquitted, but they had been punished. They had served a pre-trial sentence. I decided to go home regardless, but with hindsight today, the horror and the hell that I faced in Zimbabwe's prisons, I wish I had taken the advice to flee. But here is the thing. I was arrested for a broadcast of a press conference. You can imagine. I did not say those words. The press conference was broadcast on HSTV, my employer, from an event that was organized by war veterans. The alleged violent messages were spoken by former ruling party Central Committee member Blessed Mhlanga, who unfortunately died in exile last week, running away or evading arrest from his former colleagues who run the country today. May his soul rest in peace. The state charged me and denied me bail 3 times, in total violation of our constitution. I know that because currently I'm a second-year law student studying the law and understanding the constitution of my country. So I knew that this had nothing to do with the law. This was, and this is still purely political.
Okay, so this is part of the statement. We are still continuing with the statement that was actually done by Blessed. Just stay in tune. In few seconds, we'll actually be getting back to that particular statement that was read by Mhlanga.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what repression looks like in Zimbabwe today. In the past, it was violence on the streets, abductions, and forced disappearances. Now, it's violence, the law, to do whatever it deemed inevitable.
Okay, I think I had concluded the statement. So really this is what has made the Minister of Information and Publicity in Zimbabwe to issue a statement and threatened Blessed Mhlanga with arrest. Just imagine the whole minister threatening a citizen because of chronicling his experiences in the prison, what they did in the prison, and actually chronicling how the current regime of Emerson Mnangagwa act against its citizens. There is absolutely nothing that was unlawful with what actually Blessed Mhlanga said. He was really narrating the story because he was on an international scale. Most probably that's the problem. They want to persecute, abuse, kill, do all sorts of things to the people of Zimbabwe, and they don't want the world to know. They know that was a very powerful statement. The men spoke fluently. The men exposed the experiences. They spoke on behalf of Zimbabwe, chronicled the exact deceptive nature of the Emerson Mhlanga regime, that they do pre-trial punishments. Just imagine, how do you explain the sentencing? Individuals such as Job Sikala spending the length of time they spent in prison only to be acquitted. So this is using pre-trial detention to punish citizens. The Constitution states clearly that every citizen has a right to bail, and also, but that right, they deny it to the citizens. And the citizens that they know they will never actually run away from Zimbabwe, but they will deny them because the judges are actually ZANU PF members. At the moment, why Mnangagwa is busy changing the constitution not to appoint, not to actually allow interviews for the judges, it is because there is a group of lawyers called Lawyers for India. That is where they take the judges. So the next crop of judges are going to be actually handpicked from that group. Most of them, they are actually law class students. In fact, they failed the law and they know that they cannot practice and make money. So the best way is to actually override over ZANU PF and the primitive Emerson Mhlanga. If you have got a law degree, no matter actually your passes, you are just given a job as long as you are able to chant the slogan of ZANU PF and support Emerson Mhlanga. So they have threatened Blessed Mhlanga with Patriotic Act. We know what will happen if he comes back. My advice at the moment, should he come back or not, it's up to him. That decision has to be made by him. Definitely, when I actually make such decisions, they become permanent. When I decide to go home, I go, and I know the actually what may befell me, and I go armed, heavily armed. That this is the possibility. They may arrest me. They may keep me in prison. So I go ready to do that. I'm the one who take that independent decision. So it's up to him, but it's quite clear these hyenas are after him for making the statement that he did make. Thank you very much for watching us. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next